I just want to say we're so passionate about classic movies.
We're going to expand the conversation.
You can see the passion that's in this room.
It's thrilling to the core.
Put a new spin on some vintage films.
It's classic movies and more.
Hi, I'm Rob Medaska from Classic Movies and More, and as usual, I'm joined by
Robert Medaska III.
And it's our pleasure to get a world premiere tonight from our friend, colleague, and just an overall great guy, 3D Film Archives, Mr. Bob Furmanek.
Thank you very much, Rob and Rob. It's good having you here, and we got to premiere our latest restoration, The Maze.
The Maze was amazing. I'm taking that pun only because it's late and I haven't had a drink yet, so I'm going to use that. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through, we're going to have Bob tell you guys a little bit about The Maze.
Well, yeah, we've been working with Kino Lorber Studio Classics to restore vintage 3D films. And we've recently, thanks to Kino securing a license, we've started doing most of the Paramount Studio 3D library. And these are films that have not been seen in 3D since 1953, so 65 years.
Wow.
And the first one we did was Those Redheads from Seattle. It's a musical. Then we did a film that was actually shot on the battlefield during the Korean War called Ceasefire, an amazing Hal Wallace production. And our next one was The Maze. And what was really cool about The Maze is because of the deal that we have with Paramount, we can access studio original negatives, but they have to be done in 4K. And that's great, and that's the best possible quality, but it's a lot of money for the scanning, and it's much more labor intensive. And when we initially were going to do The Maze, there wasn't enough money in the budget to access the original camera negatives. So what we were going to have to do was use a dupe negative for one side, because for 3D you have to have a left and a right side. We were going to use a dupe negative and a fine grain on the other. Now, we would have made that work, and it would have looked very good, but not quite as good as it could have. And I knew going many years back that Martin Scorsese was a big fan of this film, believe it or not. He had seen it as a kid in 1953. It made a deep impression on him, pun intended. And for years he had tried to get a 3D copy from Paramount, but this studio had elements, but they didn't have a 3D master. Well, by chance, about 3 years ago, Jerry Lewis, who I worked for many years, was doing an event in New York at the Museum of the Moving Image. And I was going to go see him. And I found out that Martin Scorsese was going to be doing a Q&A. So I thought, well, this is a great opportunity with Jerry there. And Jerry can introduce me to Mr. Scorsese. And I played that deck, and it worked beautifully. As soon as Mr. Scorsese found out that we were the 3D archive, and he already had some of our Blu-rays. So we hit it off, and we talked about some of the future projects, and I said, The Maze is coming up. But I said, we have a little problem because we don't have the necessary funds in our budget to really go back to the original negatives. Well, Mr. Scorsese is very proactive with film preservation and restoration. And he has an organization called the Film Foundation. And he said, at that moment, he said, well, we want to get involved and we want to help, because if the camera negatives survive, and they do, we want to be sure that you get the very best possible quality. So thanks to the Film Foundation and their help financially, we were able to do 4K scans of the original left-right camera negatives, and it's about the best looking work I think we've done so far, because it looks so clean and sharp, and the whole team, everybody that worked on it, is really very proud of what we were able to achieve with it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Richard Carlson. If I look somewhat older and more drawn than I have in my recent pictures, it's because of the harrowing experiences I've been having here in The Maze. The Maze is the first picture in 3D that delves into the weird and terrifying world of the supernatural. If you're familiar with the exciting effects that can be achieved with 3D, you can imagine what happens when something from the great beyond reaches right out of the screen to clutch at you. Oh, and one more thing. After you've seen The Maze, please don't reveal to your friends the secret of its story or its startling climax. Because you see, we think The Maze will amaze you.
What fearful secret was hidden from the world for 200 years? Why was every door in Craven Castle locked at night?
I went to your room and I saw something. Something horrible. It was the most horrible thing I've ever seen.
It was your imagination.
It was something alive. I saw it move.
The terrifying story that startled the world comes to the screen in 3 dimensions.
We just watched it. It looked fantastic, right, Rob?
Yeah.
It looked really good. What was it like then pulling all this together? Because you're dealing with a lot of companies. How labor intensive and how long was it? How long did it take?
The meeting with Martin Scorsese was in 2015, so about 2.5 years of pulling everything together. We had great help at the Paramount Archive with Andrea Callis and Laura Thornburg, who head their archive and preservation division, and they were fabulous, making sure that we had the right material. The scans were done at ProTech in Burbank, which is really one of the top facilities in the world for archival work and scanning. And once that aspect of it was done, everything went to our technical director in Indiana, and that's Greg Kintz. And there's nobody in the world, I could say that now because he's got a track record of about 12 films. There's nobody in the world better for taking these 60-year-old elements with all of their problems, and every film's got a different set of problems.
Well, they have to.
Yeah. And Greg is able to take those, work with them, and keep working on them. If he runs into things he can't fix, he finds a way to fix it and make it work. The Maze was a little extra challenging to him because in addition to the 3D alignment that he does, these were raw scans, meaning that they haven't been timed or graded. And you know, working with negatives, as you do, one shot's going to be a different exposure than the next. When they made the prints originally, that was all timed by the lab, so you know, you saw a nice, continually timed print on screen.
Well, for our viewers, when a print is timed, what does that mean?
Well, that means each shot is calibrated for the proper exposure. So you don't get something jarring where you might have a scene of people talking and it'll cut to a close-up and all of a sudden it gets bright or dark. So the timing levels that off. And that's how prints are struck. They're timed by the lab. But when you get a raw scan of a negative,
it could be in any shape.
Nothing's timed. So that was an extra layer of work that Greg had to do was grade the film shot by shot, and it was a challenge.
So it's almost like being the cinematographer only 60 years later, in
Yeah.
a sense.
Yeah, pretty much. And, you know, he did a fantastic job. You guys are the first ones to, you know, really see it officially. And it's a very moody, atmospheric. William Cameron Menzies was the production designer and director. And he cut his teeth on these obscure movies like Gone with the Wind. You may have heard of that one.
I have.
You know.
Have you? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he has. Oh, right. Somebody did. Things to Come, a great science fiction classic. Invaders from Mars, another science fiction one. You've seen that.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew that. And Menzies had a brilliant eye for production design. And combining that with the opportunity to do this in 3D, he did a masterful job. He really, really did. And bringing that back to life is a great opportunity, and the whole team we're just thrilled to have been able to do that. But no, Greg fixes all that, and then when he finishes all of his work, and it's usually about 3 months per title.
Okay.
The finished files go to our digital restoration artist, which is Thad Komorowski. Thad does an absolutely amazing job with getting rid of 6 decades of dirt and damage and wear, and you know, these negatives sometimes were not cared for properly. Nemaze was originally Allied Artists, but it changed hands many times over the years, and things get damaged.
How long does that process take?
Thad he's gotten really, really good. He'll get through a 3D feature in about 3 weeks now.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You know, yeah, he's become one of the top digital restoration artists for film. He does an absolutely beautiful job with cleaning these things up. And one of the things that we do with all of our 3D work is, if the film was originally in theaters in stereophonic sound, that's how we want to put it on Blu-ray. And unfortunately, a lot of the stereo tracks are lost. They don't survive because they were on magnetic film, which deteriorates. So we have an audio engineer in Germany, and his name is Eghard Butner.
Don't ask me to pronounce that.
No. It took me a long time to get it right, but
a week of practice, I bet.
Eghard, he's the best for taking these mono optical tracks. He uses spectral analysis tools. And for an orchestra, he can pull out the strings, the brass, the percussion. You heard, you know, Marlon Skiles' music in this film, a lot of subtle strings and music like that. And Eghard is able to make that stereophonic. And recreating what they would have done originally with panning, if somebody's off camera or there's a knock on the door or whatever and it's to the left or right, we have that pan. So we're replicating what we have to assume is what they had in 1953. We don't know for sure because it doesn't exist, but we try to be faithful to how they
are the best in the world. We can say that because we know this man for a long time, and he is absolutely fantastic.
How much do I owe you for that?
He's yet to pay yet since I've asked.
Yeah.
We talked about pre-production. Let's talk about the movie. Get our viewers, give them a sense, for anybody who hasn't seen The Maze, entice them to enter The Maze.
I did see something. I know I did.
Do you feel better now?
Of course.
Well, go to sleep. You're tired and overwrought.
You don't believe me?
Yes, I do, but we'll talk about it tomorrow. Good night.
tell our viewers about the movie. Tell us exactly the maze, how it unfolds, what happens, the performances, because it was really a first-rate production.
Well, yeah, it was. Allied Artists was not one of the major studios. They were actually an offshoot of Monogram Pictures, and Monogram was a step or two above Poverty Row. You might know Monogram. They did some of the Bela Lugosi movies.
They did the Charlie Chans, a lot of them. They did the Sidney Toler Charlie Chans. Birmingham. Mantan Moreland. We love Mantan Moreland.
Well, who does? Everybody loves.
He's a genius, absolute genius.
But so they were an MGM, and Allied Artists was sort of their attempt in the early 1950s to elevate their status a little bit. And The Maze was done quickly, about 2.5 weeks or so. I don't know what the budget was really, but
they got a big star, Richard Carlson. He's pretty big. He did a ton of movies.
He just came off doing It Came from Outer Space when he finished. He went right into The Maze. And when he finished The Maze, he did Magnetic Monster.
Wow.
And after that, he did Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Wow.
He was a very busy man that
Absolutely.
year.
I mean, we actually just saw him in Hold That Ghost. We were watching it the other night.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he played the doctor. So he had a big career. A lot of well-known actors and actresses that were in this. So it was a good production. What about the making of the movie? Did they run into any problems that you know of, or when they were doing it?
There isn't any surviving paperwork from the production, so we really don't know what happened.
That's unusual, no?
With a small studio, no, not really. Things weren't kept always. But Veronica Hurst, who played the young lady in the film, is still with us, lives in England, and she was interviewed for the Blu-ray and DVD. In fact, that's one of the supplements. And she had, some very pleasant memories of making the film. The commentary, the Blu-ray and DVD has a commentary track, and Tom Weaver, who's the best at doing anything horror science fiction, he had interviewed Michael Pate, who plays the butler in the film.
Okay.
And the one recollection he had was it was very difficult when they were shooting one of the climactic scenes in the film, and I won't tell you what it is, but the cast kept laughing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had a hard time getting through it.
Really?
But it was, very efficient. Menzies had everything pre-planned, and they got through it in a good amount of time.
Where was it shot? Because it was an interesting castle and an interesting maze.
It was all on the soundstage at Allied Artists. I think there's 2 exterior shots in the whole film. One was at a house in Brentwood. That's the scene by the swimming pool early on, and then the one shot right after the intermission of the car.
Driving, yeah.
Which you said didn't look like Scotland to you.
No, actually, that was Jack that said that, but I don't remember. I was in Scotland because my mom's from Scotland. I don't remember sand being in Scotland. Everything was green or wet. That's all I really remember.
So now I've got to ask you, Rob, if you had never seen this film before. Did you find it was a little spooky?
No,
Didn't scare you?
I did not.
Yeah,
Well, what was your take on the film then?
Like, what do you mean by take?
What'd you think of the film? Like, walk people through it without divulging any of the important parts.
I think the film was really good.
Mm-hmm. Did you like the way that the tension built up?
Yeah,
Yeah, like the way that you really didn't know what was going on behind the scenes?
I did not really know.
No.
It took me by surprise what happens at the end.
Really? All right. And when he basically changed, Richard Carlson changed, what'd you think happened?
I thought it was a mind disease.
Oh, did you? Well, that's a good guess.
That is good.
Oh, that's good. I never even would have thought of that. That's why he's the smart one in the family. All right. Anything in closing, Bob?
Well, I want to thank you guys for being here for the
Maze.
unofficial premiere of The Maze. And I look forward to having you back again when we've got Sangaree ready to go.
That would be fantastic. Rob, do you have any questions for Mr. Bob?
No question, but I have one thing to say.
What?
Goodbye.
All right. I mean, pretty much wraps it then. I don't know how you really follow that. For Mr. Furmanek, for Mr. Medaska, I've been Mr. Medaska. This has been Classic Movies and More with The Maze. You'll find information on our website, on our YouTube channel, where you can purchase it. When can we purchase it?
April 24th.
All right, April 24th. Just after you get your tax return back, you know exactly where to go. All right. Once again, Bob Furmanek, Rob, and I'm Rob. This has been Classic Movies and More.